Hello, everybody. So, yes, this is a video about the new Resident Evil movie. This is also Borderlands 4 gameplay I'm using. I know most people probably use like Mercenaries gameplay or whatnot, but my house has recently been cleaned and I can't. It's like three cupboards of games that I share with my brother between a PS4, 5, and 3. So, I was too lazy to go find my copy of Resident Evil 5, 6, and 4 to shove in for Mercenaries footage. So, sorry to all the diehard fans that are now probably gonna serve my head up to a Novistador platter. But nevertheless, this video is about the Zach Gregor's Resident Evil movie. Its teaser trailer dropped yesterday. I watched it about 3 times now. Once yesterday, twice today. I went and read some stuff that Mr. Gregor said himself. And I just wanted to kind of talk a bit. This is really even more unscripted than what I normally do. Just talk a bit and go over my thoughts of what I'm thinking about this, what this looks to be doing, and where is this going, like in terms of Resident Evil and as an adaptation. So to first off, let's recap what happened in the trailer, which is honestly actually not much. This trailer is almost to me more of a vertical slice. Those semi like to any older people, to those of you that will remember stuff like the original Mass Effect demo at E3 in like 2000, what was it, 6? Gosh dang it. That was the year I was born. But a demo and couple of things that show off what the overall tone of the story and presentation is and doesn't really give you much of the story. Because honestly, this trailer, it's good for a horror movie though, keeps it light on the plot. The only thing we get is a medical, I didn't even know it was a medical courier until I read the plot synopsis and from interviews. But this medical courier, played by a guy, I think his name was Alan Abrams. I'm just going to call him AA for this, or just Alan, like smiling friends. I should shut up. But nevertheless, though, his car breaks down or something, and he's stuck in some hellscape, who knows what going on. And the trailer is set to the backdrop of him calling his significant other, girlfriend, wife, daughter, mother, who knows, telling them that he'll never see them again, potentially. And then we just have some shots of horror and blood, viscera, and the guy from Dune, I guess. Yeah, the guy from Dune is there, so I mean, good on that. But nevertheless, though, it really just skimmed on the plot, which is good because it builds natural intrigue. But another thing that was interesting, though, this trailer didn't feel so much like a Resident Evil trailer to me as it almost felt like Silent Hill, if that makes sense. The snowy outsides, um, the more abstract monster designs that we see thus far. I mean, we haven't even really seen monsters. We saw a fat guy sitting in a drain and like 8 arms plunging out of a door, and then a bunch of corpses like falling on cars. Definitely much more like abstract horror in this trailer alone, though that might be different in the movie. But definitely, like I said, a lot more abstract stuff, a lot more almost psychological feeling horror. The horror of this just like giant entity sitting there, a bunch of arms scratching out a door, and this really great shot of him running alone through a city as things just splat on cars around him. It creates a great terrifying atmosphere, but it definitely, to me, doesn't feel like the Resident Evil atmosphere that I think of. So once again, this part of what I'm going to talk about now is highly subjective, as it is naturally going to be. But like to me, it didn't feel like the horror that I think of when Resident Evil. To me, when I think of Resident Evil and horror, it is pretty in your face. Resident Evil can be sometimes subtle, but Resident Evil likes to play its horror pretty in your face. Famously, the original zombie jump scare in Resident Evil 1, we have the head spinning around and a head falling out. Resident Evil 4 in that with the Goradors and that, it's a pretty in your face terror of having all these people bum rush you and then get chainsawed in half and such. So it's still terrifying, but definitely not the kind of like abstract horror that it is. Though that's also not saying much, as once again, this is going to actually very smoothly lead into what I also wanted to talk about. I've seen some comments, and I think I even saw like one video saying that this doesn't feel like Resident Evil. And my comment to that is, what does Resident Evil even feel like? I mean, I don't mean that to sound snobby. I mean that to anybody watching this video, please tell me, what does Resident Evil feel like to you? Because if you were to ask me, Resident Evil is a series that's been going on for so long. It has sunk its teeth into almost every genre of horror and mixed almost every genre as well. Classic zombie outbreaks in the Spencer Mansion, moving into science fiction-ish zombie outbreaks. You have your citywide outbreak in Resident Evil 2 and 3, and like how that all gets handled. You have a more occult sense of horror in Resident Evil 4, leading into semi also science fictiony military. Resident Evil 5 is just the horror of my childhood growing up in Africa. It's like your average day that you hear about the kids talking about in like Soweto or like Lesotho or something. It's what I heard about like playground conversations, you know. Resident Evil 6 is worldwide horror. It's not as scary, obviously, but like the idea of it, you know. And Resident Evil 7 takes us back to Texas Chainsaw, Intimate Terror, and Village then goes Victorian horror, which once again bring up to quickly go back. Yes, Village was also a very snowy peaked area, like in the trailer, but I do feel like it's important to point out in that case that Village went for a much more deliberately Victorian feeling, giant castles, old villages, and all that, where this is a much more modern look. And then Requiem as of late, which almost like looks almost like post-apocalyptic horror, actually. So to me, seeing these comments that said this trailer doesn't feel like Resident Evil, I genuinely would like to ask, what does Resident Evil feel like to you? Because it's been a series that has put its hand in so many things and done it so many times. Even like, what is Resident Evil itself in terms of like presentation of its characters and stories? What is it? Because Resident Evil itself is characterized by the strange mix of genuine terror and absurdist comedy almost. I mean, let's look at Resident Evil 4. I mean, people were complaining that the game lacked the comedy of the original when the remake came out. So Resident Evil, to me, if you ask me, is characterized by this mix of genuine terror of wanting to survive. Like, the best example is, once again, 4. The terror of having an entire village of people running after you, all dead eyes filled with anger and hate, wanting you dead with hatchets and pitchforks and, I was going to say flambés, torches, and then throwing into that freaking Dr. Salvador with his chainsaw, and then you have the people like you shoot their head, and then the freaking I was gonna say Ganado, the Plaga just sprouts out of their head. It's a genuine mix of terror and horror. And then in between you have Leon going, where's everyone going? Bingo? And some other dude shows up. I take it he must be the big cheese around here. Or that was maybe Luis. But you get the what I'm saying. Resident Evil, to me, is characterized by this mix of genuine terror and unintentional comedy, which this movie seems to be avoiding, which, once again, that works. Resident Evil 7 wasn't as funny as Resident Evil 4, or as unintentionally funny as Resident Evil 6 and 5. So, genuinely, to anybody that watches this, please, I don't mean this to sound snobby. I don't want to sound like I'm some expert. Please tell me what do you understand that says, or what does Resident Evil feel like and look like visually to you? Because, I mean, like I said, it's been in almost every genre. But beyond that, though, we still didn't get much, though. Going off Mr. Roger Craig Smith, Mr. Gregor's pedigree, we can definitely expect a very well put together and very terrifying horror movie. Weapons and Barbarian were very good and very well done. I did not think I would enjoy a movie about Thanos and an elementary school teacher as much as that, but it was good. So going off of his pedigree, we can at the very least expect a genuinely good horror movie. But on the other side, then once again, will that live up to whatever Resident Evil is? But then once again, what is Resident Evil in the case of this video? But with all that being said, though, like summing up my thoughts, I guess. Summing up my thoughts, I am excited for the movie. I think there's a very strong potential here. I think in terms of what we've seen and how it's presented, it looks genuinely terrifying. Even if it's going for what looks to be a more abstract, almost Silent Hill terror. Going from somebody that's also wanting to get into acting himself, this is the kind of movie that's just like a dream project for so many people, because from what we've seen here, the story hinges almost entirely on Mr. Abraham's performance, and it's a huge responsibility, but also like a great potential to show how good of an actor you are if you have a movie that hinges on like your performance like this. So going from that perspective, I'm also very excited to see what the movie's going to have in store. Very excited to see like the effects, what it does practically, special effects. In general, I am excited for this movie. I think it's going to be a good movie, but if it lives up to whatever Resident Evil can be sometimes, that is to be debated. As something to end this off, it's interesting to me. Lots of people wanted to adapt Resident Evil, but nobody has really wanted to adapt Resident Evil. What I mean with that, like, everybody's like, all the live action adaptations I've done iconography and things and characters, but nobody has ever wanted to take the characters and their actual story and adapt them. Nobody has wanted to take the Spencer Mansion or Raccoon City or bringing whatever Spain and Africa and that. Nobody's wanted to take those stories and adapt them in the live action formats. I mean, we have the animated movies that are in the part of the game universe, but those are its own things. So yeah, that honestly sums up. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I really am. If you have any thoughts, please let me know and enjoy whatever time of the day or the world you're in. And thank you all very much for watching this video.